a criminal organization secretly created a wasp that can reverse human aging. And their first real test subject was the one daughter they had spent years protecting from exactly this kind of danger. Today, we are breaking down 5 plot holes in Kill Blue, the breakout hit anime about a legendary hitman trapped in a middle schooler's body. Quick context for anyone who hasn't seen it. Kill Blue follows Juzo Ogami, a 39-year-old legendary assassin working for the ZOO Syndicate, who gets stung by a genetically modified wasp during a job against Mitsuoka Pharmaceuticals and wakes up in the body of a 13-year-old. While his boss searches for an antidote, Juzo is ordered to infiltrate a middle school, where he ends up bonding with Norin Mitsuoka, the pharmaceutical heiress connected to his entire transformation. The manga is fully completed now, 13 volumes, so we actually have the full story to work with here, not just early episodes. And once you look at the complete picture, a few things genuinely do not add up. Let's get into it. Plot hole. Number 1. The original mission gets completely abandoned. Let's start with the actual premise of why Juzo goes to school in the first place. The ZOO boss's stated reason for sending Juzo undercover is to evaluate whether Rika Middle School is actually safe, since the boss is considering enrolling his own daughter there. That is the mission. Check out the school, report back. And then this objective basically evaporates the moment Juzo discovers Norin Mitsuoka is in his class. From that point forward, the entire story shifts toward investigating Mitsuoka Pharmaceuticals and finding a cure for Juzo's condition, and nobody ever circles back to the original assignment. We never find out if the boss's daughter actually attends this school. We never get a final report on whether it is safe. Given how much danger Juzo ends up uncovering at this school, multiple rival assassins enrolled as students, kidnapping plots, an entire pharmaceutical conspiracy operating in the shadows, you would think the answer to the original question would matter enormously. Instead, the premise that justified the entire setup gets quietly dropped the moment a more interesting plot hook shows up. Plot hole. Number 2. Way too many assassins ended up at the same tiny school. This one becomes harder to ignore the more characters get introduced. Juzo is sent to Rika Middle School specifically because of his connection to Mitsuoka Pharmaceuticals. Fine. But over the course of the story, we learn that Shin Kohazami, an assassin from the Chinese organization Yugong, was also sent there specifically to target Norin. A separate assassin from Jarden, the industry's largest assassination organization, is also independently investigating Mitsuoka secrets at the exact same school. And by the final arc, several other classmates, including members of what looked like an ordinary friend group, are revealed to also be working assassins. For an organization like Mitsuoka Pharmaceuticals that is supposedly running one of the most closely guarded secrets in the criminal underworld, a secret valuable enough that multiple competing crime syndicates from different countries are independently sending their best operatives after it, the actual security around that secret seems remarkably bad. An entire single classroom ends up stuffed with assassins from competing organizations who somehow do not immediately recognize each other's tells for a significant stretch of the story. If this secret is genuinely that valuable, the level of operational security on display does not match the stakes the story keeps telling us are involved. Plot hole. Number 3. The inheritance clause. Makes no sense coming from this specific father. Here is one that becomes a real problem once you know how the story ends. Norin's adoptive father, the CEO of Mitsuoka Pharmaceuticals, publicly declared that whoever marries Norin inherits the entire company. This single decision is directly responsible for most of the danger Norin faces throughout the series, drawing in suitors, opportunists, and eventually assassins specifically, because marrying her becomes a path to controlling a pharmaceutical empire and its secrets. But by the final arc, we learn this same CEO adopted Norin specifically to study and eventually access the rejuvenation formula tied to her condition, and that protecting the secrecy of that formula was a central priority all along, important enough that another character is willing to re-inject Norin with it just to keep it hidden. If protecting this secret and protecting Norin herself were genuinely this important to him, publicly attaching an inheritance clause to her marriage is close to the worst possible decision he could make. It guarantees a constant stream of dangerous people, specifically targeting her for exactly the reason he claims to be trying to prevent. A man calculating enough to adopt a child purely to study a secret formula inside her does not seem like someone who would carelessly create the single biggest threat to that same secret. Plot hole. Number 4. Noren's role in creating the wasp contradicts her role as an unknowing victim. This one sits right at the center of the story's biggest reveal, and it does not fully hold together. For most of the series, Noren is framed as someone caught in the middle of her father's secret research, someone being studied and protected without much say in the matter, largely unaware of how deep the conspiracy around her actually runs. Then the final arc reveals that Noren, alongside a character named Yakumo, was actually one of the creators of the very wasp that transformed Juzo in the first place. These two versions of Noren are difficult to reconcile. If she was knowingly involved in creating a genetically engineered, age-reversing bioweapon serious enough to be fought over by multiple international crime syndicates, that requires a level of awareness and agency that contradicts how naive and sheltered she is shown to be for most of the story up to that point. And if she was simply being used as an unwitting test subject by her adoptive father this whole time, then crediting her as an actual creator of the formula does not fit either. The story wants the emotional payoff of her being both an innocent victim of her father's manipulation and a brilliant co-creator of dangerous technology, and those two character arcs pull in opposite directions without ever being fully reconciled. Plot hole. Number 5. Juzo's body should not be able to do what it does. And finally, the one that the story itself almost seems to acknowledge without ever actually addressing. Juzo's transformation is treated as a serious genetic science problem throughout the series. His ex-wife Eri is a scientist actively researching how to reverse it, and the entire plot revolves around the Mitsuoka formula being powerful and dangerous enough to fundamentally alter human biology at a cellular level. This is not framed as some cosmetic illusion. It is framed as legitimate, scientifically significant age regression. But Juzo's actual physical performance never regresses along with his age. Despite having an average build for a young teenager, he is shown effortlessly scaling transmission towers, keeping pace with the school's most elite athlete in raw physical contests, and retaining every bit of his adult-level marksmanship, hand-to-hand combat skill, and ambidextrous precision. If the regression genuinely altered his body down to a cellular level, the way the show's own science angle insists it does, his muscle mass, bone density, and overall physical conditioning should have regressed along with his face and height, the same way any actual 13-year-old's body works compared to a trained adult's. Instead, his body apparently kept every physical advantage of his adult prime while only his appearance and stature changed. The show wants this to be real, serious genetic science when the plot needs stakes, and a convenient cosmetic change when the plot needs Juzo to still be the most dangerous person in the room. Which one of these bothered you the most? Drop it in the comments. Subscribe for more anime plot hole breakdowns every day. I'll see you in the next one.